6:30. I'll call the meeting to order. Apologies.
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from councillors Peter Gabbert, Hasina Khan and Alan Whittaker.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. Pleased to see some in the room and some of you I realise are online. Welcome to you all. Minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday the 21st of July. Has everybody got a copy, and are there any queries or questions on that? Oh, we seem to be all right with that. Can I just have a proposer? Kim, a seconder, please. And okay, right, so that's that done with. Thank you very much. Right. Number 3 on the agenda, we're having a climate emergency presentation from Sally Green, the Climate and Change Programme Officer. I'll hand over to you now, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I'm just here quickly to introduce myself. As the Chair said, I'm Sally Green, the Climate Change Programme Officer. I've been in post about 5 months, so it felt about the right time to come and obviously welcome myself and start talking about the work that we're doing. So next slide, please. Okay, so just the quick structure. I did say this was just going to be a nice quick one just to run through. Obviously climate change is a huge piece of work, so this is just a quick overview about the work we're doing, our commitments, explain our strategic themes, and then just go over 2 quick things, which is electric vehicle charging points. I have had quite a few parish councils email me before, so I thought it would be a nice chance to do it all in one, and then public events as well, because we've got some coming up. So next slide. Strategic themes basically means that everything has its own place. It increases the level of reporting that we're able to do of our work, and it also means that officers have an increased responsibility for that work. So while I oversee all of them, we do have additional officers that sit inside of them. So for example, we have sustainable transport, we have overview and scrutiny recommendations, we have officers that take care of that on top of that. So they split them up really nicely and ensure that all work is completed and it's not just a huge list of work, basically. So next slide.
We're not seeing slides.
Oh.
At home, we're not seeing slides.
Oh, I'll stop talking for a second then.
What we're doing, Ruth, do you think we can see slides now? Can you see the slides now?
Not at home, not virtually.
Not yet.
So some are getting and some are not.
Yep, come through now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Is everybody happy now? Yeah. Do you want Sally just to run back through them, or start the presentation again? Everybody okay? You don't want to start the presentation again? No?
So yeah, do you want to go to the next slide? Just so you could see the 10 strategic themes. Obviously, I didn't run them through out loud, so people at home wouldn't have seen them. So they're the 10 that we've got, and all of our work in our climate change programme is divided into that. So next slide. Okay, so our commitments and achievements. First, we've got our commitments. We do boast about our commitments quite a bit, so you might have seen them online, you might have seen them in reports and that kind of thing. First is our goal to reach net zero by 2030. That is 20 years ahead of the government goal of 2050. We are working as hard as possible. We do have a team, not just myself, that are working towards that. So that is a major goal for us at the moment. To follow on from that, in 2019, we declared a climate emergency, which is why we set our goal of net zero by 2030, because this is an emergency and needs to be dealt with as fast as possible. Next is plant 1 tree for every resident. If you could go back. Oh, there it is, sorry. 1 tree for every resident by 2025, so that's in a couple of years. That's 118,875 trees to be exact. So that was based off 2019 numbers, so we do obviously have more residents than that now, but we set that number then. We have a tree giveaway next Saturday, so residents are able to plant the trees as well. You may have seen that on our social media and through emails as well. So not only residents, farmers, schools, and our own planting as well works towards that effort. It's a part of offsetting our carbon footprint. And then lastly, we have the recommendations from the 2020 Overview and Scrutiny Task Force. These were endorsed by Cabinet. These actions are a part of our programme. They're a larger piece of work that goes outside of that, but we do have councillors, and we do have very committed councillors as well that have actions that they want to continue, so they are a part of our programme. Next slide, please. Okay, so our achievements to date, we have our air quality strategy that's been released. A couple of months ago, we did have a public consultation of air strategy, so that factored that in, and that's now been published. Tree planting and open space schemes. These are ongoing. We have our wildflower meadows, lots of outdoor recreational areas, improving walking paths, woodlands, such as Yarrow Valley and Astley Park as well. Climate change officer recruitment. Obviously, we have myself that's here. We did just finish applications being open, so we just closed applications for a second climate officer, which will be a carbon and air quality officer. So we'll be doubling the team. They'll be focused on the scientific data, so we can have the scientific side and then the more strategic side. So it'll be a nice combination of the two. Partnership work, obviously we do work with a lot of partners. We work with LCC, with United Utilities, community groups, parish councils. This is something that we can't do on our own as a borough council. We need everyone included within this. Public consultations, I mentioned the clean air strategy. We've got one out at the moment for electric vehicle charge point demand, and we do release those to ensure that we factor in the public's thoughts and feelings towards all the work that we do. And then waste management streams, we are constantly trying to improve those. The newest goal from the government is to recycle 60% of our waste, which is obviously a lot higher than the current national average at about 40%. We recently just installed recycling bins in the town centre to see how effective they are, to see if that can be rolled out further. Next slide. Ongoing work. The main pieces of work that we're doing right now is drafting our climate change strategy and looking at the feasibility of decarbonisation work inside the council and outside. Decarbonisation work, unfortunately, at the moment is expensive. The technology that's required for it, not everybody does it. It's relatively new technology, so it is slightly more expensive. Here at the council, we are focusing on things that need to be done first, so the highest producers of carbon, and then work our way down to the least is the method that we're going for, and our new carbon and air quality officer will help with that as well. I did mention we've got the tree planting and the tree giveaway on the 30th of October is the first one, and we have another one in February. And then our electric vehicle infrastructure. The demand study is out right now for public consultation, and then it will be the feasibility work after that fact when we've determined demand in different wards. Next slide. So I said we'd just pinpoint on two things. The EV charging point, I'm really trying to plug this, the consultation, because it does close on Friday. We've actually had a really good response, a lot higher than we expected so far. So it's clearly something that people care about. I have not looked at the responses yet, so I don't know if it's a good care or a bad care. But the response has been really high. So if you want to spread the word a little bit for the last couple of days, that would be great. Procurement options, these do change a lot because electric vehicle charging has suddenly become such a huge thing so quickly. Companies constantly change, they change their work patterns, they change their names, the technology that we use. So procurement options is something that we're currently in discussions with the Energy Saving Trust to find the best option for us as a council. So that's where we're at currently, and obviously that demand study will help decide post-procurement. There are large amounts of opportunities to work with other partners regarding EV charging points. We can't beat the whole demand for the borough on just council-owned land, so there's opportunities to work with Lancashire County Council, parish, neighbourhoods, and obviously us, and it's to find the ideal locations for fitting them. Where the demand is, it's ensuring that we have the land, the cables and the technology to meet the demand of our residents. I've mentioned there are quite a few technical issues behind this, which is why it's a constantly ongoing amount of work, and it's something that all councils do struggle with. Meeting funding criteria is currently one of them. The technology is still rather expensive and it changes a lot, so there is a large amount of criteria that you have to meet. The fitting of the cables, so the distance, whether you go under roads, over roads, around houses, is another big factor. The cables are large. And then you've got meeting the area demand. If somebody wants loads and loads of charging points, they're not going to want to walk 20 minutes to the house after they park the car for the evening, or 30. The average for people that are happy is 5 minutes. So finding an ideal spot that's 5 minutes from your house isn't always easy, especially when you've got large areas with terraced houses, which is another factor. And then the types of technology you want to fit as well. Next slide, please. All right, and then finally, public events. So obviously there is COP26 in Glasgow this year, which puts the UK at the forefront of climate change and climate change progression in the government, basically. That starts in a couple of weeks. It's at the end of October to the first 2 weeks of November. We're hoping to tie in strongly with this while it's at the forefront of everybody's mind. So we're having education and increased awareness through public events over the next month through November. Our main event that we've got is an eco-market. Posted on social media and contacted businesses. Well, this event is on the 13th of November, 11 AM till 4 AM, so just after the Santa Dash. And it'll be in Fazackley Street in the town centre. We're collecting all the local businesses that are eco-driven, so your refilleries, your eco-food, using leftovers, and then some other businesses, and bringing them all into one location for everyone that's eco-conscious to be able to use and access all of that business. If anyone has any businesses that they particularly want there, please feel free to email the climate change email, and we'd be happy to contact them. We'd like as many local businesses there as possible to promote them. We have other business events as well. So we've got the business event at the end of the month. A children's nature trail is going in as well to coincide with the Friends of Astley Park trail as well. A high school debate in a couple of weeks, which will go to Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who is going to be at COP26, so that's really exciting. Another school engagement as well. For us as a council, this really is an opportunity to engage. Obviously, I've not been in post very long, so this is my first big opportunity to get into the community and actually engage with them. So yeah, we'll see how hopefully everyone's really interested in the eco events. So that's it for me. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Just a quick point of clarification. As I understand it, I was on the subcommittee that looked at green issues. The fast charging electricity points are about something like 10 times the cost of a conventional one. Is that still correct?
The cost can vary quite a bit. Realistically, they are the rapid chargers because they charge your car in 20 minutes rather than about 8 hours. They are a lot more expensive. It's mainly because of the cablings they have to use. So the cable from the main electricity source needs to be a lot thicker and a lot better conductors. So yeah, about 10 times higher. Yeah, they are a lot more expensive.
And the other point, we went to a meeting with Lancaster County Council, and it was pointed out there, if they got down in 2030, a little bit further ahead than us, if they got down to zero emissions by 2030, it will still be only less than 1% difference to the actual city. It's very, very important to get the community on board.
Sorry, I will just jump. Yeah, I totally agree. Net zero does include everything. There are some things that are out of scope, so it doesn't include the through traffic. Transport is the highest producer of carbon dioxide in the UK, so transport is a really, really big one for us. It's solely 27% of carbon emissions, so even if you get your buildings net zero, you're still looking at 27% of carbon, just being people driving.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Sally?
Right. Say Devonshire Road, will the cable have to go across top of the footpath, or will they take it underneath the flags to charge the vehicles up? For houses, you know. How will it work? How does it work?
So the technology is relatively recent for that. Obviously, Lancashire County Council own the highways, so it's not something that Chorley Council could do, would go under the paths and charge on the side of the road. Technology is emerging at the moment to discuss the best ways around people such as terraced houses that don't have off-street parking. It's whether it's in like the Kerbs, so whether it's underground, whether it's on lampposts, is the current discussion. But yeah, it would probably go under the pavement, so you'd have to dig up all the pavements, is the current plan.
But there's some snags, aren't we, really, with this job? When you look into it deeply more than what we are doing, you know. Yeah, definitely. So we do have a group between LCC and other borough councils. It's about finding the best technology borough-wide. We don't want to do something that doesn't mix with other boroughs. So say if someone drives from here to Wigan, you don't want completely different technology when someone commutes to work, or else it wouldn't work. So it's about meeting the needs, meeting the technology, and having sure everybody understands the route that we've taken as not just a borough, but as a nation and as a region as well.
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one to help out on that last point, because I work in utilities, and there's a lot of trials going on around the country with what you just spoke about getting particularly terrace streets, narrow, highly densely populated areas, about getting power points to people that they can use. And a lot of the infrastructure will be looking to use existing spare capacity in ducts that are under the ground already. So a lot of the electric companies, a lot of the telecoms companies are working currently on trials that we are watching with interest in Lancashire, because we have a lot of terrace streets and narrow streets up here. So there's, I'm aware of trials that are going on in Oxford, Nottingham, and various other places with technology where you can effectively plug in, whether you pay for it or whether you don't pay for it, how you pay for it, all the rest of it. So there is lots of cutting edge stuff out there, but as Sally said, we've got to just see what the best way forward is. And at the moment, unfortunately, there's lots of different ideas with lots of different potential solutions. But the idea of digging up all the streets to put cables in is probably not, floating many people's boats. There is a lot of spare capacity out there because there's a lot of big pipes, effectively, with not much in, that could be utilised to do some stuff. So it's something we are watching very closely. But as Sally said, again, that's down to the Highway Authority, which in Chorley is County Council, but there is a team that's working on this kind of stuff with the districts as well.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Ian.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, really, in order to measure what you're going to achieve through these initiatives, have you got any metrics across the borough that you can actually use to measure your achievements against?
Is this specifically relating to carbon or everything?
It's relating to basically energy usage and emissions.
So energy usage is monitored by the government as a whole. So they do yearly reports through BEIS, which is the British Energy, and I've lost the last two, but BEIS monitor it. So they do industry, residential, and they do gas and electricity as well, and they release it based by borough, so we get that information yearly through BEIS.
Is that possible to break down into borough level, so you can take that on different areas within Chorley Borough?
It's only borough level at the moment, so it's not split up by ward, so it's just Chorley as a borough at the moment. Lancashire County Council are looking at reporting it to a more specific level
than Bays do at the moment, but that data isn't available at the moment, so that'll be 2019 data, but they've got work out at the moment for that year.
Okay, thank you.
Derek?
Do pollarded trees, mature trees, actually capture carbon as effectively as fully mature trees? Because I think this has an implication for tree preservation orders. If we're planting so many trees, are we going to allow people to pollard mature trees and therefore degrade the amount of carbon we capture?
So regarding trees, it depends on the tree species as to the efficiency generally. It mainly depends on the canopy size of the tree. So it's the amount of leaves a tree has is how it photosynthesizes, which is how it gets rid of the carbon.
The point I made was a mature tree will have a larger canopy.
Yeah.
So therefore, if they're pollarded, it degrades the amount of carbon they can capture. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So therefore, the implication is, at the end of the day, we have to look at tree preservation orders for mature trees and keep them as well as the ones we're planting.
I say it isn't, not every tree can be protected. That is something for planning policy. They do have a set amount of rules and procedures that they follow for tree protection orders, which ensures that the ecology and the biodiversity is factored in. So that is important. We still think that we need more trees. We do want a huge canopy. We're not going to stop planting trees, but our older trees are still important and we do still factor that in. It's just the rules of planning policy is something that we can't physically change in the borough. Those rules are set out for tree protection on a national level.
And the second point, as you mentioned, that there could be some cables overground, underground. I think from all our villages, those who live in the outside the urban core, we would hate to see more cabling across roads. But to plea that when the policy is implemented, and you are able to affect it, can we have the cables underground? Because most of us are inundated with cars in the villages. So we need to have those points.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can pass on to Lancashire County Council, the Highways Authority, and let you know your concerns with it, yeah.
Sorry, Ken.
I don't know your name, but
Sorry,
let's fire away with your question.
It's Craig Ainsworth from Massley Village Parish Council. Am I right in thinking then that if the Parish Council want to take part in the initiative and assist in planting these 118,000 trees, but it's might not be on land either owned by Lancashire County Council or Chorley Borough Council, there'd be a presumption there for in supporting the planting of the trees?
Yes, yeah, definitely. That's definitely something we support. We support parishes already, schools as well, and other businesses as well, and farmers. So yeah, definitely, please email
Just a
us.
supplementary then, is there a very easy process in obtaining that permission?
So if you email our generic email, it's climatechange@chorley.gov.uk. If you email that and send an email, I'll send it over to our tree planting officer, and we'll see what we can do and get more details about it.
Julia?
Thanks very much, Chair. I've got two items I want to raise around electric charging. I've come with an example of somewhere you could pilot that just backs up what Councillor Bradley's saying. It's a highly built up terrace area of Coppell. Absolutely ideal. It could easily remodel a car parking space to get the best out of it and actually enhance it with other green initiatives. But the charging points would be absolutely ideal. And I know there's money coming through from government and we need to have sort of shovel-ready items identified. So I think in every parish you can probably find one example where you know you can actually do some good work, that'll hit a specific area. Secondly, I'm delighted that Sally's talking about collaboration between Chorley Council and the County Council. I'm really, really keen at county level to push forward, and if Chorley could back us to ensure that library car parks and school car parks come into this initiative as soon as possible, really. And with the buying power that County Council and Chorley Council have, we'll probably get more charging points for our buck, really. So it's just a case of keep speaking to each other and let's get on with this really fast. And obviously, you're bringing some green initiative into the heart of education with the libraries and and the schools, and I think they're welcome by the school community too. So thanks very much, all very positive.
Katrina.
Katrina Reid, Exton Parish Council. This is a more general question. We're discussing the infrastructure and the housing as it is in Chorley. What about new housing estates? Are the planning officers looking at insisting that charging points are on those estates are indeed incorporated into the building of individual houses? Is that a policy that they've looked at?
So at the moment, planning policy is national, but we are currently having our Central Lancs local plan, which is Chorley, South Ribble and Preston local plan. And this is a form of policy which ensures that everything is done at a more local level. So this is something we are looking into through the local plan, which means that we will have a policy in place for climate change mitigation, which can include the infrastructure of EV charging on new developments. So it'll be through the local plan rather than current.
As a member of the planning committee, one of the problems is, Katrina, these developers will appeal to the planning inspectorate and they will follow national guidelines. So if you have something local, it goes to appeal. The inspectorate are not going to consider your local plan. They're going to go on national guidelines, and that is a problem. Because then you lose your appeal and possibly cost the council money. So, yeah, I'm with you, but obviously we've got to try and influence the government to do it nationally. That's very, very important because then the inspector will follow that guideline. Councillor Bradley.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try and clarify some of the things I know that maybe Sally at times doesn't know because it is quite, it's a complex thing. So planning particularly, the government do, like you just said, have national guidelines. They are changing their national guidelines to accommodate some of this green environmental improvement stuff, which comes back to an earlier point that somebody made, I think it was Councillor Horsfield, about evidence and how can we drill down to ward levels. That's an important bit of what Sally and her team have been doing, and the wider team have been doing since she's been in post, and before that, is to get some evidence on an individual ward by ward basis so we can start to, as you just said, build in those controls as part of strategic planning policy, which we will be developing, and we are developing currently, because by taking that evidence that says in this area there's not enough charging points or there's not enough or poorer quality, we can take those steps to enforce that on those planning permissions that are given. As usual with this stuff, Katrina, and you know this because you've seen the worst of it in Exton, is the policy follows the housing being delivered and the infrastructure comes after the housing's been put in. But we are urging the government to give us the powers as quick as possible. We are setting that evidence base so that it can't be challenged and go to appeal, like Gordon just said. And the more you can highlight things to us locally where it's not being done, the more we can look to build it into planning permissions and then look to enforce when it's not done. So we would love to see every site that comes forward in Chorley to be 100% geared up for electric charging. It isn't currently, but it's an aspiration we have pretty quickly to do that, alongside lots of other things, particularly around air quality and tree planting and all the rest of the stuff that we've just discussed.
Thank you, Alistair. Anybody else? Anybody? Thank you, Sally. That's part of the meeting. If you want to leave, you're welcome to.
I think I'll step out. Thank you, Chair.
Good presentation. Thank you. Item 4 on the list is the route of the Ironman race. I think you want to come in on this one, Graham, do you not? I'm not going to steal your thunder here.
Thank you. I know what you're thinking. God, he's at it again. What's happened is, Keith Hidden, in his infinite wisdom, he Janet would like the route of the Bull Ironman to be omitted from Chorley. Now, Keith Hidden did alter, get the Ironman route altered. He certainly got it taken out of Chorley southwest part.
Do you remember that
And
meeting,
it's
Graham?
done.
Yes.
And it's gone worse because now we don't have one Ironman. This year we've had two. And again, the roads are being closed for at least 10 hours. Now, we always seem to be the first to get shut at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and reopened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Councillor Snape knows the problem well. We cannot get carers there. We cannot get, it's like being locked up in your own property. Well, the parish council's concern is, as I said, keep in. And the race to East China should be restricted. We had a 26th of September race, the second one this year, and this seems to be overlooked. The parish council has a proposed route that will keep the race entirely out of Chorley district. It's not Lancashire County's Ironman. It's not Chorley's Ironman. It's not East China's Ironman. It's Bolton Ironman. So why don't they keep it in Bolton? And the thing is, on the back, did they all get the map? You should have all had a map.
I've certainly got a map here,
Yeah.
Graham.
Right. I'll just go through that. This map, the red route, which Councillor Keith Hidden, as former executive member for Highways, agreed to avoid the problems of residents and carers, which was experienced against Rawlinson Lane, Babylon Lane, and that was sorted. We got that sorted because they reversed the route of the Ironman, and we didn't have to stay for 9 or 10 hours. But people just higher up than our house have now got. They've got the problem that they can't get out. And Back Lane, for example, is a single track road. And if you live up there, you just can't get out. Now, the purple route shows has crept back into East China and created difficulties for residents in Limerick and getting access in and out of the parish. Now, they say it's a one-off. I don't know. The green route, which is proposed by East China Parish Council, is an alternative route to keep away from the road within East China. Not only East China, Rivington, Anderton, but also to take it out of Lancashire altogether. With the exception of the unitary authorities at Belmont, is to take it out of Lancashire altogether. There are at least 5 options to get the race back onto the regular use of Chorley New Road, Horwich. And with these avoiding the race passing through Horwich Town Centre. And if you look at the map of Rivington Moor there, Angleside Moor, the green route and the red route converge at Belmont. Instead of turning right at Belmont and then left at the Black Dog, if you turn left at Belmont or go along for about a mile until you get to Scout Road and come over the top, right down to where it comes into a point in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, if you turn left there, it's still in Horwich, it's in Bolton. You go along on the first left-hand green line down at Horwich, or the second one at Victoria Road where the swimming baths was, or the third one, the little short one, all miss Horwich Town Centre. If you want to go back to the Crown Hotel where there was they have a big setting off point there, is where they converge, the red and the green, and then go back to Bolton. Now that, if Lancashire County took that to Ironman and said, well, we don't want you, or we don't want you, in Lancashire County, that is the proposed route you could take. But it doesn't seem to happen. Keith Hidden, and I'm not calling Keith at all, got it sorted out, and then they slipped the second one in on the purple route, totally out the blue in September. I mean, it's like these people just don't seem to want to listen. When I complained to them by email, they turned round and said, I can't get home off my holidays. You know what they said? Well, I've looked on Google Earth. Leave your car up near the bay or some wheel your suitcases home. I mean, they just have no comprehension, these people. What I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, won't be a minute. I won't mind. East China Parish Council would be grateful that this could be discussed and the map circulated to the meeting, possibly to Lancashire County people responsible, and get hold of Ironman and say, look, for the 4th time, we really, well, you might want, it's not on this. To shut people in the properties for 10 hours isn't on at all. Plus the carers, Kim knows, it's just not going away.
You want to go first. Terry Kim wants to go as well. Go on, you go first, Terry.
I was a committee member of Chorley Athletic and Triathlon Club. So I have a vested interest in my athletes and them participating. I think there's a number of points to make. First of all, Graham's right. It says Bolton Ironman. It's actually UK Ironman. It's a private company. So they're out to make money, and they do make a lot of money. There is no reason why the route could not be redirected through Bolton. They've labelled it the Bolton Ironman. There's also a proliferation of event organising groups. One is Mad Bull Events. And they can seem to put on events without consulting anybody in the local area. I'll stand corrected on that. If somebody can give me the evidence they've consulted. There are more event companies coming up. The one that you use in Chorley, have got a very bad reputation with my club, your 10K and maybe the Santa Run. They have put events on without asking people as well. So what we've got to be aware of is that why should Graham's parish or our parishes be impacted when we've got events that actually are labelled Ironman Bolton or Mad Bull events or something else? It is just not on. And Lancashire did promise, and I was at that meeting, and we met Ironman before that. They did promise that they would not impact on local communities.
Can I just say something?
Certainly, Graham.
Do you deal with the Chorley Grand Prix, the cycling one?
It's not on now, but it did.
We'd never had a problem with that because it was a rolling roadblock sort of speak. We never had. But when they stick a blooming sign at the end of our road, and as long as it is to make insult to insult, it's in Welsh.
Hey, don't pick on the Welsh.
I know my son-in-law's Welsh. It's in Welsh.
Can I just make it? Sorry, stop you coming in. Just make the point. I was told 30 odd years ago, and I don't think it's changed. The police cannot stop an event. If an event's causing a problem, like traffic, police can't stop it. Lancashire can. It is Lancashire's job to stop an event taking place in our area.
We were led to believe, gone by Keith in 3 years ago, that I think he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Ironman wouldn't be on Lancashire roads again this year, next year, whenever it was. And they have altered it, but they've crept in. And the cheeky beggars have now put 2 in this year.
I do remember that meeting, and that is what Keith said. Unfortunately, Keith's not in that position anymore. But I'll go over to Kim now because Kim's keyed up with this.
Yeah, I mean, just to back up what Graham's saying, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, Keith came and sat where Jennifer sat, and I think because of the grief that he'd had in his county council division about issues, and also that I'd put to him about issues that we'd had across Adlington, Anderton, East Charnock and Rivington, he asked everybody, all the parishes, would you be opposed to Ironman no longer coming through Chorley? Nobody said anything, and I think he was quite shocked. So in fairness to him, he took that back. I was invited to a meeting with some officers at Lancashire County Council. They put forward a new route, and they said, in fairness to him, it didn't quite not come into Lancashire, because I think it actually come through Anderton, didn't it? Came through Anderton, up New Road, and then went back into Rivington, up Horrobin Lane, and that way, but it was the periphery of Lancashire. Subsequently then, unfortunately, Councillor Idden's no longer in his role. This year, obviously last year they didn't have Ironman because of COVID. This year, in the summer, they stuck to that route, but then we were hit with, I think it was a week's notice in the middle of September, that there would be a supplementary Ironman race that would go a totally different route, that would cut off half of Heath Charnock, round Long Lane, Back Lane, Knowsley Lane. There was a week's notice on the email system that you get as a county councillor. I was actually out door knocking round the yew tree and round there, and I said to people, oh, you do know that Ironman's coming next weekend? Nobody had a clue. Nobody had been told about it. Unfortunately, and I'm not calling Keith, but he's not in his role anymore, so I think that we just have to put the pressure on the new cabinet member for that particular role, Charlie Edwards, to stick to that promise that his predecessor made, because it's not just about it being an inconvenience for people that live there. A lot of businesses have lost thousands of pounds in Rivington. The barn, the pubs, there were big issues for people up at Bibby's Farm and other places, talking about people's livelihoods, on top of what they've had to put up with over the last year or so as well. So I really think it's very, very churlish of the county council, to be honest. So yeah, I back up everything that Graham said in a nutshell. Thank you.
Could I just thank Terry for his support? I thought you were going to say something different when you said
I've got Councillor Bradley and I've got Ian as well.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if there's any county councillors in the room, Conservative county councillors, but I think what we need is from this group, and if everybody's in support of it, is a letter going or some communication going to both the county council and to Chorley's, in particular, Conservative county councillors, of which I think there's 3 or 4 at the minute, one of whom, Councillor Riggett, has a position in the administration, reminding them of their commitment previously and the fact that this has now apparently changed because of the change in personnel, which is not helpful. Refer to Keith, he stood to what he said he'd do. And like Kim just said, I think his successor needs to also stand to that. That requires some political lobbying. The Borough Council's already written on this matter. We're happy to write again, expressing our concern that this is creeping back in. And it'd be helpful if this group could do something similar in support of those southeastern parishes, and if that could also be raised by the political members who are on this call, who are probably closer to those people as well, because it appeared that Keith did listen, and it'd be helpful if county councillors also listen now, but unfortunately the ones of my persuasion are powerless because they're not part of the administration at County Hall. But it shouldn't change just because the people change. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Ian.
Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I must admit, I did find it rather curious, the change of route between the July and September events, which then routed it through each other. But as you're probably aware, for the past few years, Ironman between Rivington and Horwich has been coming through Anderton. And since they closed the route through Adlington, I have to be honest and say we haven't had any complaints about it going in that part of the district. But I think it is of concern to us as a parish council on 2 accounts, really. One, that we never get consulted about these events in advance. And secondly, the fact that they're having 2 this year, I would hope that that's not a precursor to introducing yet more and more events every year. Because if they up the frequency, I suspect there will be complaints coming in.
Thank you, Ian. I think what we can do in this instance, certainly we will write to County Councillor Edwards, reminding him of what Councillor Keith Eden, County Councillor Keith Eden promised, and as Councillor Bradley said, to be fair to Keith, he did keep to his word and he did change it. So yes, if we could do that. Have you anything more to add, Kim?
No, I was just going to say, I think that's fair enough. I mean, Chorley Council actually used to get invited to the planning meetings for Ironman, and I believe, speaking to the officers, they're no longer invited anymore, which is shocking, really, isn't it? But yeah, I think we should just write a letter to Charlie Edwards and copy everybody in. Thanks.
Yes, Derek.
The Ironman executive came to Rivington and Blackwood Advisory Group once, and he got a bit of stick from us, you can imagine. And he promised to come again the year afterwards. He never saw them. So Ironman know full well what they're doing.
I mean, it's never really made any money for Chorley Borough as a borough. So I'm quite happy for the liaison committee. I'll sign it to write to Councillor Edwards in support of sticking to the route that Keith had originally designed. Any more questions on that? Thank you, Graham. Right, we come to something I asked about, which is dropped curbs. I believe we've not had a response yet. Obviously, this is Lancashire County Council. I believe Democratic Services were written to. We've not had a response yet. So we'll await response and probably bring that to the next meeting. And then we're on to item 6. So,
I think the letter I put in, I've been down to the service at Chorley Richard, and they have put markings down where the curves need to be dropped. One side, the north side's been marked, but the south side's okay. I think they're an angled curve. The other side is a full curve, if you will. You know what I mean? A square thing, you know. Anyway, I've had it, you know. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that issue might be solved. Right, we come on to item 6, which is questions from members of the liaison. I don't think we've any public here. Has anybody got any questions? Certainly try to answer them if we can. Helen.
Sorry, it's a really personal question for our area, but we've had a massive clump of Japanese knotweed here, and I'm just wondering who I need to speak to about it. It's at the side of the road. It's not on private land. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. Every year I look at it, I'm like, I need to get rid of it.
And it's on the highway, is it, Helen? Yeah. So it would be Lancashire County Council. That's Rivington, I'm assuming.
Angles Arc. It's between
Angles Arc.
the top of the hill and the viewpoint.
That'll be your name, will it, Kim?
Yeah, we can tie it up about it if you want when we finish.
Yeah,
Tell me where it is and
yeah,
I'll report it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I think I saw somebody else with their hand up. You fire away with your question. Ellen, if you go ahead with your question.
Who are you asking, Chair? Is it Colin?
Yeah, I think it's Colin.
It is. I'm right here at home. Just a minor correction too. I'm not a guest. I'm a councillor. But however, could I ask if there's any progress being made on the CCTV at Whittle? I had a word with Councillor Bradley. Councillor... Oh, I'm getting old. Leave me alone. What's his name?
Was it Councillor Mark Clifford?
That's the fella. Sorry about that.
Yes,
and Mark said he was on the committee with the police action. And I'd like to know if there was any progress made on that.
Thank you for that. I couldn't see your name, Colin, so I never know whether councillors or not when you're on the team meeting.
Don't worry about it.
Alistair, would you know anything about that one?
I think I know a bit. Jennifer Sannister, I don't know if she knows anything as well, or near you. She knows anything as well. As I understood it, it was a CCTV setup that the parish was contributing to, whether that was Whittle or Clayton-le Woods parish, I'm not quite sure. But it was the idea was to tie it back into our wider system. And therefore it was going to be a joint operation to do that. It was progressing. I don't know if it is still progressing or where it's up to, but we'll go away and find out, and we'll come back to you and let you know by all means, because it made sense to us to do that. There's always issues with CCTV about when you're putting up cameras in more remote, it's not really remote, but you know what I mean, further away from the police station, the central hub, because it's the lines of sight to get relays back to the control centres and what have you. But I'll look into it. It was definitely something that we were supporting, but quite where it's got to, I'm not sure, but we'll find out and come back to you if that's okay.
Great, thank you very much. That's good.
Thank you, Alistair.
I have another one, George. I'm sorry about this.
Fair enough, fire away.
Can I carry on? Yeah. The council's asked me to bring up hedge trimming and the general upkeep of footpaths in weeding, which are pretty sad at the moment. It looks as though nobody cares in Whittle. That probably stretches further on, but it's all overgrown, particularly at Union Street, where our village hall is. They've trimmed around the bus stop at the bottom, but up Union Street, it's still a mess. Is anything going to be done about it?
It's certainly something we could raise with street scene. Put a message. Yeah, we'll put a note into street scene for them to come and have a look for you, Colin. I think that's the best we can do from here for you. I'll get them to get in contact with you. Councillor Bradley, did you want to come in?
If that's okay, Chair, I appreciate I'm chipping in a lot here, but I tend to know a lot of these issues because they're consistent across all the different parishes. So obviously you'll appreciate we've changed this year away from weed killing with glycophosphate-based weed killers because they were seen to be damaging to the environment, and we've been using sort of heat ones to deal with weed infestation, if you like, which are probably not as effective as weed killer. So being a bit old school myself, weed killer was far more effective, but obviously was very damaging to the environment. Given what Sally was saying earlier, we do have to make efforts not to be seen to be polluting the runoff from roads, etc. So we are looking at other options. So if areas are struggling, let us know, because what we're finding with the heat ones is the weeds come back quicker. It does kill them off, but they come back quicker than obviously it would do with residual weed killer in the ground, and therefore we are changing some of the rounds to pick up on that, but we're also looking to trial other more organic weed control methods, and therefore if you've got an area that's a problem, you might be able to use one of these new trials, because we're wanting to see different methods to see if they control the weeds better, and therefore if you highlight those areas, send an email in to myself or your local councillors or whoever. We'll try and focus on those areas. We want to try different things in different places because a lot, as Sally was saying earlier, a lot of these new technologies, and I include weed killing in that, are quite experimental, and therefore we want to see what works. And I've actually had this conversation last week with our own street scene teams because I was experiencing the same issue in my own ward and in other parts of the borough because similar reports are coming through. So we are trying to do more weeding and more weed control, i.e. with more manpower, but we also need to trial different methods to see which works best in which area without harming the environment. So by all means, that's a general point, put it forward to us.
That's good.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Platt, Alan Platt. You're muted, Alan.
Sorry, my screen's so small I couldn't see it. A general one, and forgive me if this isn't the right forum to bring this up in, but it will impact on a lot of parishes in the Chorley area. You may be familiar that the Ministry of Justice is intent on building a new prison at Ullswalton. It will house around about 1,700 inmates. Or clients, or whatever they call them nowadays, and the vast majority of visitors, deliveries, whatever, will be travelling via our roads. This does include staff who will be, according to the agent, travelling from a 40-mile radius of the prison. So everyone in Chorley is basically going to have an extra influx of vehicles. And as I said, I'm not sure this is a correct forum, but I'm sure Ullswalton Parish Council and the residents would be hugely grateful for any support this committee could offer. I appreciate your planning committee members will not utter a word on this, but anyone else, any assistance in objecting to it, we'd be most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I mean, certainly it will affect people. Obviously, after your last comments, you know what I'm going to do now. It's over to you, Kim.
He drops me in it. I'm sure that as individual parishes, they can take it back to the people can take it back to the parishes and ask their family and friends and stuff and raise awareness about it. But obviously, it's a planning application, isn't it? As much as any other planning application, and I don't know when it'll be determined. Not familiar with the details of it, but other than that, I don't think there's anything else that we can add. Oh, I think Alistair's got his hand up.
As usual,
Councillor Bradley, you're nearly doing as much as me.
I can we've highlighted, in fact, the most primary concern we have with development, given we have limited powers. It's very hard to stop a prison being built. What you can do is affect the things where it has an impact on the local community. And there is an argument, and I'm sure the local area accept that this is an argument, that building a prison next to an existing prison where there is land next to an existing prison does have its benefits and has its minimisation of impacts on a wider area. Because to go into another part of Chorley and build a large prison like that would be ridiculous, really, to be honest with you. And if there is a need for prisons in our area, and there is a need for prisons in our area, then we have to at least consider having them. The biggest single impact that we've highlighted as a borough council, and bear in mind County Council and others are consulted on this, is the highways, particularly Southport Road, and the travel through to the Southport Road, particularly from the M6 junctions, whether they're official junctions like Standish and or Leyland, but also unofficial junctions that we all know exist like China Richard. So we've highlighted that rigorously to both the applicants who are the Ministry of Justice, but also to County Council as the Highways Authority and what have you. So we want to see significant highway enhancements as part of that, because members at Uns Walton and people who out that area will know that Southport Road, the junction with Walton Lane and all around that area is very heavily trafficked. It's a very fast, busy road, and therefore just adding the traffic that we're talking about will have an impact and a negative impact to those residents. So we're happy to support that as a council, and we'd urge other councils to pick up on that. It's also an issue that impacts on South Ribble, because an amount of that traffic will dissipate through Moss Side to the Leyland bypass and what have you. So again, it's working in concert with others to reinforce those points. And at the end of the day, a prison is disruptive enough without causing wider transport impacts. So Councillor Platt, I agree with totally.
You okay with that, Alan? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got the council support.
Absolutely, Chair.
Fine. I'm sorry. Anything else from anybody? Looking for hands. No, we'll move on to item 7, which is items for future meetings. Coral, did you have 1 or 2 suggestions? Open it to the floor. I'll open it to the floor. Has anybody got? Graham?
At the last meeting, which was my team meeting, I asked, would it be possible, and you sent me an email on this, to take Keith Charnock back out of the weekly planning list where it's lumped together with Chorley Southwest. Southeast, is it a Southwest? It's one of them. Because now you have to read in detail which planning application it is, because you don't know whether it's in East Charnock. You have to scratch your head and think, is that in East Charnock on the border, or on the boundaries you said in the email to me the other week? Now before May, East Charnock was on its own. And now it's lumped in with Chorley Southeast.
I think the director on the housing, Jonathan North, said he'd look into that. Have we had anything back from Jonathan on that subject?
Through you, Chair, we've contacted Jonathan a couple of times. I believe we was waiting for ICT to confirm whether it would be possible to break it down by list. I will follow up again after this meeting and come back to you.
There didn't seem to be a problem before the 1st of May, did there? It was on its own.
Chair, through you, it's because of the boundary changes. It's because of the boundary changes. So Graham will be delighted to have been connected to Chorley Southeast, which I know he loves. But all the boundaries changed. Therefore, the weekly lists that were dispatched by ward were grouped together. I think it's possible to do, Graham. I've argued for the case because I know how important it is and how much simpler it would make, particularly your parish council meetings. They are looking into it. They have it a couple of snags from what I know. Coral's quite right to say she'll ask again. And there was two different directors that were looking at it. One was the planning director, the other was the IT director, because it's an IT output. And as you'll be aware, changing IT systems, particularly council IT systems, can take a bit of time. But it's something we would like to see delivered. The question for me is then, can they be split out for other parishes similarly, i.e. not just by ward, but by parish? I imagine that'll be the next question from some of you. Can I have mine by parish as well? Because Heath Charnock is special, Graham, as we all know, but it's not that special.
Right.
So I've asked the same question: can everybody have the same thing? Because it's a ward thing, not a parish thing.
In actual fact, Councillor Bradley, there'd only be 4 because there was 4 councils combined in May. It wouldn't be everyone; it would just be 4. But thank you for your support.
Thank you, Alistair. The only thing I would say, Graham, I've about 3 applications at the moment, and I know Councillor Platt will back me up, and they're not strictly speaking in the parishes of the councils I represent, but one of them, for instance, I could throw a ball to you, and it's that near. The problem is if you miss those out, those are important to the residents in your parish because they're so extra close. So you've got to just be a little bit careful because you can get caught out sometimes. Councillor Platt.
Well, just on that score, Chairman, there is, and I'm just trying to find it now. I'm not going to be able to because I can only do one thing at a time. But on the website for the planning, you are able to break it down by parish. So you can get a weekly planning list from the website, which is broken down by parish.
We have it. It says Chorley South East and Heath Charnock. We know which parish it is. It's breaking it down when it's lumped together.
Is that not a borough? Is Chorley South East and Heath Charnock not a borough?
Yes, it is.
But that's where the planning notifications come through every week now. It's Chorley South East and Heath Charnock. Heath Charnock used to be on its own. Anyhow, it's being looked into, so.
I'm just trying to get it up on the other machine just to see what it is called. The online application search. And I've always been able to break that down into parishes.
Refer to Councillor Platt, Graham. I'm on EP Parish Council where Councillor Platt's the clerk, and Councillor Platt does always send us the planning applications in Heath.
Yeah, we do. We do in our parish. We get our clerk sends them separately. But when you look at the weekly planning application, you've got to look.
I think that's the point. I think that's the point, Chair, and Councillor Platt and others. Is it's the weekly list that come out by ward, not by parish. It's the weekly list you're talking about, Graham, isn't it? Not the actual search document.
It is.
That's the difference. It's the weekly list. The weekly lists are geared up to go to borough councillors, and they come as a byproduct. Unfortunately, to parish councils. Don't take that the wrong way, but that's why. But that's why we're looking to be able to do the same function you can do by a search, which Councillor Platt's talking about, weekly for the parish councils. And that's the thing. The software. Part of the problem is the software we use isn't ours, so we have to get them to change it for us. I think that's part of the delay. But I'm getting beyond my own knowledge base now. But I've got another meeting about later this week. I'll bring it up again and find out where it's up to by all means.
Right. Many thanks.
Thank you for your contribution, Councillor Bradley and Councillor Platt.
I was just going to say, Chairman, if that's the case, and I'm staring at it now on the screen, then surely it can't be that difficult to incorporate it into a planning list. But
I'm going to show you a bit prejudice of IT now. You wouldn't think so, would you, Alan? But apparently it is. One day we'll get there.
All we can say at this stage, I think, Graham, is it's ongoing, and Councillor Bradley's looking into it.
Thanks very much.
Items for future meetings, if anybody's got any suggestions. I mean, the deadline for submissions is the 7th of January. So there's plenty of time to go away and have a think. You know, anybody got any concerns or would like a sort of presentation on a particular issue, please get in touch with Democratic Services, with Coral, and we'll try and put it on the list, or try and find somebody who can come along and do a presentation as such. No suggestions, so any urgent business? Previously agreed with the chair. I've not got any urgent business. And I think that's the end of it, and thank you for your attendance. We've got the dates for the next meetings all geared up, haven't we? So
Chair,
we know where the next meeting is.
just a
Chair.
piece,
Yes,
just a
Derek.
piece of information. It'll help you, Graham. I've just Googled the cost of Ironman. The entry next year, £500 per person. That's the point.
Not thinking of entering, Derek. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, very useful. It's like you say, it's a business, isn't it? Thank you all for your attendance, and safe